Welcome.
Howie, great to be with you. Thanks.
Governor, why do you think the hush money trial with all its lurid testimony has not hurt Donald Trump so far?
Well, first of all, I'd like to call it the alleged business filing error case, because that's really what the core of it is. And I think it's failed to get any traction because I think Americans see right through it. Americans have already acquitted Donald Trump. I think they realize that when you've got 5 weeks and you can't even prove or even articulate what crime has been committed. So I had a chance a week ago Tuesday to be in the courthouse with the president and observe for a whole day, not just get the filter of what the media might be telling you. And what I observed there, when I watched, that was the day that Michael Cohen went from wrapping up his the prosecution's leading set of yes and no questions to watching him get destroyed by the prosecution. And it may have been the day that he also then now is a serial perjurer, perjured himself again on that day, getting caught up in all the lies that he's had. And then the next day, on Wednesday, I was going back to North Dakota, and I'm watching the media coverage, and it was like, I think that they were at a different trial than I was at. And so it's
on that point, do you think most of the media are rooting for conviction?
Well, I think that certain business models in media today are geared around their audiences, and those audiences are absolutely, and I think the Biden administration has got it, their whole campaign is hoping for that. I mean, that's their whole strategy, is to be able to put a label on the former president that they think might be helpful. But I said Americans aren't buying. It's actually backfired because President Trump, who's the master of earned media, I mean, getting free press and getting attention and having all eyes on him. I mean, he's masterfully used this to help expose the weakness in a broad set of the lawfare that's going against him.
You have said that Joe Biden won the 2020 election, so you differ a little bit with the former president on that. But do you think the 2024 outcome will be contested as well?
Well, Howie, this is interesting because in my lifetime, I think we know 1960 was a contested election right there in Cook County in Chicago. And then in more recent history, for even the young people may not know, but in 2000, we had the hanging chads in Florida. And
I remember it vividly.
In 2016, we had Russiagate and Hillary Clinton and everybody claiming that the election had been stolen. And
although she did concede the election.
Eventually, yes.
The next day.
But I think we've got again, and for people that want to refresh themselves, I mean, you can go watch the 2008 movie Recount, where Kevin Spacey plays Ron Klain, where they were, launched that movie in 2008 ahead of when Obama was running. So it's been a stronghold of the Democrats to be concerned about election integrity. I think we all should. Democrats, Republicans, Independents.
Governor, the press has been pretty nice to you. Wall Street Journal headline, rich, loyal, and good-looking. Why little-known Doug Burgum is in Trump's VP mix. I'm not going to contest the good-looking part. But
I think isn't that the definition of fake news right there?
But there's a ritual to this. You say you and Trump haven't discussed possibility of you being the running mate, and that's true. You also say you haven't thought about it, which I imagine can't be true, because if you were to be picked and the ticket were to win, you'd be a heartbeat away from the presidency. Surely this has crushed your mind.
Well, I think the key here is to understand that what really matters is that President Trump wins the election. He's got so many good choices that he could make, and only he knows what choice he's going to make, and he'll make that choice at the right time. But when you take a look at, he's winning across all demographics. He's beating Biden in all the swing states.
Well, Friday's New York Times, for what it's worth, lists you as one of the 5 top contenders. Now, you've visited Mar-a-Lago several times, including for Easter brunch. I imagine you're not just sitting around shooting the breeze. And Trump has said he'd like you in his administration in some capacity. Are you open to that?
Well, again, when I ran for president and when I ran for governor, it was never about being part of any administration or a cabinet thing. I'm a private sector guy right up till the day before I was sworn in as governor in 2016, and private sector's got a ton of appeal. But I'm just want to make sure that we're doing the most we can to help move this country forward, and that is singularly about getting President Trump back in the White House.
Well, if I were handicapping it, I'd say, look, you're not yet a household name. You come from a state with 3 electoral votes that hasn't voted for a Democrat for president in 50 years. On the other hand, this is a decision that will be made by one person. Hypothetically, of course, Governor, how would you feel about debating Kamala Harris?
Well, I think that any one of the candidates who's being considered for VP would think that would be a dream come true. But as a
I'm asking you.
Yeah, but as I tell you, well, I mean, there'd be 3 questions you could just start off with. You could start with, hey, how's the borders are going with our open border. Number 2 is, supporting all of this activity in it's not just tax and spend, borrowing from China and other places and spending trillions of dollars, which is choking every American family and every small business. I mean, on the economy, would love to talk to her. I don't think there's not sure, another question you could ask, has she ever created a private sector job in her life? I mean, because I worry that the whole Biden administration doesn't understand the economy. So those are, two topics. And the third one is right now, the last, month or so, where I really feel like the Biden-Harris administration has been negotiating for Hamas. I mean, they're actually, instead of, we used to say we don't negotiate with terrorists. When they're putting a red line in the sand for Israel and saying, if you don't do this, I mean, they're taking the same position that Hamas would want us to take.
Wait a second. I mean, President Biden has largely supported Israel. Now, certainly there's been controversy about trying to be a restraining force on this invasion of Rafah and holding back the 2,000 bombs. But, I mean, to say that he's supporting Hamas when the ICC came out and said Bibi Netanyahu was a war criminal, the president stood with Israel.
Yes, and under President Trump, Iran was on its knees financially. The failed sanctions of the Biden administration has allowed that country to go from literally being broke to now having hundreds of billions of dollars, all from their oil sales, which they're using to fund Hamas, Hezbollah, and the Houthis. I mean, so we're basically funding two sides of the war. Biden's energy policy is funding our enemies, and then we fight in Congress over how much we should fund our side. And some of the positions that they're taking to try to restrict Israel's ability to conduct that war, I just feel like, again, they're on the other guy's side. I mean, how about no more aid to Hamas, no more pier to unload the aid until you release the hostages? That would be negotiating for Americans that are held captive now for over 230 days. That would be something where I'd feel like he's negotiating for our side.
Just briefly, are you enjoying all the attention?
Well, I don't know.